Writing from the soul is the mother of all invention, and 21 Grams is back for another season of this exploration. We will look into the artist and the art they create. Except, this season we're adding the questionnaire, invented by the great Bernard Pivot, to go even deeper. They say 21 grams is the weight of the soul, and this show is the scale. So now here's your host for 21 grams, Joe Compton. Hello everybody, welcome to 21 grams. I'm happy to have you all here. Thank you for joining us. And I am joined by prolific science fiction author John B. Rosenman. Hi John, how are you? It's been a while since I've seen you.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
And
it's been a while since we've had you here.
If 21 grams is the weight of the soul, I think I sweated off a little bit.
Yeah, we were having a little technical difficulty on the other end. No worries, though. We're here now, and that's all that matters. Anita says hello. Hello, Anita. So, John, how I always love to start this show is I'd love to give the guest the opportunity to take the floor for a little minute or two, and tell everybody a little bit about yourself. So, please tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
That's my favorite subject, by the way. I guess I might start by saying that I have a PhD in English from Kent State University in American Lit. My dissertation was on William Faulkner, As I Lay Dying, The Poor White and Faulkner. I retired as a professor after 29 years. I lasted 29 years at Norfolk State in 2012, so I'm getting on a bit. While at NSU, I did accomplish a few things. I did succeed in creating a creative writing program or emphasis, and I designed a course in how to write science fiction, fantasy, and horror. Altogether, I published about 20 or 21 novels and books, and about 200 short stories. Well, I've been around a while, and I've scribbled a lot. Most of them have been in sci-fi, fantasy, horror. I published one young adult novel in which, in a fairly thinly disguised presentation, I am one of the three major characters. That's the merry-go-round man. How did I get into this business, if it is a business? When I was a kid, a family friend gave me a subscription to Amazing Stories. And man, I was off to the races. It fired my imagination, Joe. Later came EC Comics, the kind you had in the 50s. Ray Bradbury, a friend of mine, an older friend of mine, introduced me to Ray Bradbury, The Martian Chronicles, The Illustrated Man. This was just maybe slightly after the golden age of science fiction. When science fiction didn't have as many bells and whistles, perhaps, as it does today. One thing I loved that really got me hooked were terrifying sci-fi / horror movies like The War of the Worlds, Them, and The Thing. I mean, the original The Thing, which was almost as good as the one that came after. And I got to tell you about one day that was a formative day for me. I was about a month after my 12th birthday. And I'm sitting in a theater by myself. And I'm watching the 1953 version of The War of the Worlds. Okay? And there's this scene. Remember, I'm 12 and not that sophisticated. There's that scene where they're investigating the cylinder.
Yeah.
And 3 men start to come out to investigate. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to use any 4-letter words here, but, oh, don't go and investigate that. Don't do that. And the one says, I remember the line, wait a minute, bombs don't unscrew. I think, you're damn right they don't. I was so scared, Joe. It was one of the the only time I've in all the movies I've watched, in all the serials I've watched, where I had a fight to stay in my seat and not to run
Yeah.
away. That day that went a long way to getting me hooked, indoctrinated, and addicted to the whole vast realm or genre of science fiction slash horror, you name it. What do I love about? So it was a life changer.
Yeah.
What I love about science fiction, I've thought about this a lot. I like the sense of wonder. It seems to me that science fiction, if it's got to be about anything, it's got to be about instilling a sense of wonder and capturing and feeding into the reader's or the audience's sense of wonder. I also love its imaginative and conceptual freedom. I mean, you can go anywhere. And if it fails, erase it or file it and come back and try something else. Anyway, for me, it was like being born. Two of my major themes
Mm.
for somebody who reads my stuff. These are things I return to again and again. One is the endless mind stretching wonders of the universe, which I think a lot of science fiction readers and writers share. And also the limitless possibilities of transformation. And that can be sexual, cosmic, and otherwise. I keep returning to that for some reason. I love the subject of transformation, of something changing into something else,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's good or bad or beyond imagination.
Mm.
Anyway, that's a little bit of a background about who and what I am.
That's awesome. I think the interesting thing for me is I came about science fiction the same way that you did, in that,
What else do you ask me?
what's that? I came into science fiction about the same way you did, in that
Uh oh, what happened?
I don't know. Do you not hear me? Hello, hello. Do you not hear me?
Oh,
Oh,
what happened?
I'm not sure. Do you not hear me? Hello.
Oh boy, what can we do about this?
Do you not hear me, sir? Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Do you hear me? Do you see
Mr.
me?
Compton, I've lost you again.
Uh oh. Does the audience hear me? Anita, do you hear me? Hello. Hello, hello. Yeah, Anita hears both of us, John. So I don't know. I hear you. I hear you.
Hello?
Hello. Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Hello. Uh oh. Oh, there we lost him. For I don't know how long. Oh, the beauty of being live. Yes. Hopefully he'll jump right back in, and we'll continue this conversation. Hopefully that'll help it. Uh, in the meantime, while I do have a moment, stay tuned. After 21 grams tonight, we're doing Hit the Dice with Sean Hillman. SM Hillman is going to be running his number one indie game of 2023, which was Shadow Dark. And we'll be playing that here in about 30 minutes. So we'll be real excited about that. And hopefully John will come back here in a minute and we'll continue our conversation. But stay tuned for that. That should be a lot of fun. We got a lot of great stuff planned for that already. Uh, we've been working on it all weekend, so I'm real excited about that. It should be a lot of fun. And then tomorrow, I also have a spotlight episode going up in about a very famous jazz singer that a lot of people don't know about. So check that out as well. That'll be tomorrow night at 8 p.m. will premiere. All right, John is back. Can you hear me, John? Do you hear me? I don't think he hears me. I hear him, but I don't think he hears me. John, hello? John, do you hear me? John, do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Hello?
I hear you. Do you not hear me? Here, let's do this. Oh, this is going to be tough. Let's see if I can make this work. Yeah, I don't hear you, John. I hear you, but you don't hear me, so I don't know what to do at this point.
Oh, you hear me?
I do.
Okay, I cannot hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try settings. No. Audio.
Hello, 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 hello,
Hello?
hello, hello, hello. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 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 testing. This is fun for the audience. I'm sure they're getting a kick out of this. Hello, 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 hello. So I'm going to type John the questions. He can't hear me, but he can read the private chat. So I'm going to type the questions to him and see if we can go that way so that he can at least go through this. It'll be a weird conversation, but you all can hear me. So John cannot, but we will do that. Maybe at some point he'll be back to hearing me. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm asking John, what do you believe is the biggest benefit of having an education in writing?
That's a good question. When I was a freshman in taking freshman English, I handed in a sample of a story I was writing to my English professor. And he wrote back, I can still recall what he said. He said, "You may have some bent or talent for writing, but the most important thing for you to do is to read as much as you can." And that holds true. Reading gives you a chance, especially in a genre like science fiction, it gives you an idea of what's been done, of what's been done to death and which you should probably stay clear of. It gives you a sense of different possibilities to become well read, well rounded in various ways. It also gives you exposure to different writing styles, different ways of expressing oneself, creatively and otherwise. So that's very important. To read widely and to develop your own style, to be nurtured in the humanitarian or humanistic tradition. It also helps to be able to know how to use a semicolon when you have to, and to be able to match a subject up with a verb. You can't overemphasize that importance because editors and publishers, if nothing else, may reject you virtually on sight if they spot 2 or 3 errors in the first paragraph. So in general, being well read, having an education in writing, taking courses in writing, in creative writing, that's important to see how other people write. What are some of the possibilities so you don't reinvent the wheel? It also helps to nurture a sense of how to critique writing, how to tell good writing from bad, imaginative writing from derivative writing, and so on. So these are some of the advantages that you can glean and acquire from having an education in writing and in creative writing.
You mentioned exploring the unknown was something you mentioned that was made you fall in love with science fiction. As science fiction grows and discovers more, do you find fiction and science are blending more, and does that adjust how you write these days? He's reading what I read.
Also good. Let me think for just a moment about that. So much writing, science fiction, so much of science fiction is moving closer and closer to science and to nonfiction, to non-fictive writing, I guess you could say. The new wave movement of the 1960s and 70s often featured science fiction that resembled nonfiction, scientific articles, and the like. So I have a big book here, if I can pull it out. No, that's not it. Let me try again. The Ascent of Wonder, the evolution of hard science fiction. Over
Nice.
1,000 pages, baby. And much of the writing here resembles scientific articles, nonfiction. So more and more, science fiction is moving toward nonfiction, toward scientific articles, toward scientific research, and the two often, not always, have blended far more in contemporary fiction and science fiction than they did in the past. And so if today's burgeoning potential science fiction writer, if he wants to write science fiction, he also has to read not only science fiction, but scientific articles and scientific research. He has to watch the Science Channel. And the two have to come together if he is going to be a complete writer. That's all my off the cuff reaction to that. A really excellent question. What have exploring other genres done for you as a writer? Hmm. Well, one of my novels is called Dax Rigby, War Correspondent. Okay. It's one of my favorite novels. I'm not sure it's one of my best, but it's partly a detective or a mystery science fiction novel. And I would not have been able to write it if I hadn't grown up reading when I was 9, 10, 11, and 12, a writer that many of you may or may not have heard of, Ellery Queen, who's actually two people. And I used to read all these detective mystery novels. And you know something? I never once figured out who the guy was, who the murderer was. But I continued to read mysteries. A few weeks ago, I discovered a new novel. I picked it up by random off the shelf at a thrift store. It was called The Last Detective, or something like that, about a time in the future when a asteroid is heading toward Earth. It's a perhaps slightly overdone trope in science fiction. And in addition to science fiction, it's a series of detective mysteries. So reading detective stories has helped me in writing a few of my own novels and stories. In addition, well, for example, I mentioned the fact that, or maybe I didn't, that I like transcendental tropes or themes. Well, I happen to read romantic poets such as William Wordsworth. And in one of his poems, the poem written on Tintern Abbey, he describes the appearance of the emergence of the divine and with nature. And this has helped me to capture a sense of awe and wonder in some of my science fiction. So I think in general that if you want to write science fiction, it helps, yes, to focus on science fiction, but read as widely and as many genres as you can because you never know when you may need to use them. What have exploring another genre? I've just answered that one. I've written some exotic erotic horror, by the way, and I would not have been able to have done as well as I did in some of the stories if I hadn't read erotica as well. I just throw that in as an extra. What tropes or past devices do you wish would make a comeback? Well, that's good. Or past devices. Do you wish would make a comeback? I'm not sure about that one. What tropes or past devices do you wish would make a comeback? Perhaps adolescent or children's science fiction that would present. Children today are so sophisticated, often so bored and jaded. I would like more science fiction for children and young adults that would be aimed more at their innocence. One of my novels, which is not science fiction, is The Merry-Go-Round Man. And an adult asked me if it would be appropriate for their son or daughter who was about 12 or 13. And I had to say, I'm afraid not. I thought it was a little bit too spicy and X-rated. I would like more science fiction that aimed at hooking young readers and not treating them as adults who have already been around the block. So that's one trope or approach I would like to see emphasized more.
I'm asking John.
Yes, science fiction.
I'm asking John if science fiction has evolved over the years. As you mentioned in your intro, what has been the biggest adjustment you've had to make in your own writing over the years?
Science fiction has evolved over the years, as you mentioned in your intro. What has the biggest adjustment you have had to make in your own writing over the years? I think the biggest adjustment I've had to make is to leave some of the themes and approaches I seem to have naturally, and which would not be competitive in a professional as a professional writer. It just wouldn't fly. Um, if I wrote a story about first contact, for example, it would be too familiar, be too similar to others. I had to get away from that, and that meant I had to read widely, and I had to be a member of a writers group who would double check me, who would double check my fiction to make sure it wasn't old news.
Mm.
And that's one thing I'd have to do. And I had to develop a thick skin, or as thick a skin as I could. So when I presented the story to them, and at times there were a dozen people in this group, um, I had to be willing to accept their criticism and not argue back, because they opened my eyes. They would they would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, this is done before. I've seen it before, or you can't do it this way. This is not what's competitive. Uh, this is not part of the present show in science fiction today." So that's one thing I had to learn. And that meant I would sometimes have to read fiction that really tested me, and which was not easy. So I would read a novel, the trilogy by Dan Simmons. Um, I would read Exogenesis by Octavia E. Butler. Um, I would read Dune once, and then I'd read it again. You had to be willing to try to think more as a professional if you had any chance of competing with established pros. Because Lord knows there are tens of thousands of writers in science fiction, and those are the people you have to compete with and distinguish yourself from.
Just so everybody knows who's coming in, I see some people coming in. John can't hear me, so for some reason, we're not be able to connect the audio for him to hear me. I can hear him, you can hear him, and you can hear me. So I'm writing the questions in the private chat and having him answer them that way. So just bear with us for that purpose. And I still think his answers are excellent, and he's giving some really great insight here. So I'm going to continue doing it. It'll be interesting to see how the questionnaire goes, but we'll give it a go.
Another good question. I have written standalone novels and series. What do you prefer more? It's a combination. If I write a standalone novel, of course, I don't always know if it's going to be a standalone novel until I get to the end. Don't always know. But a standalone novel means there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it really has to be a standalone. And when you finish it, you can heave a great sigh of, I'm glad that's over. Pat yourself on the back and congratulate yourself on a job well done. You can do that. On the other hand, a series gives you the opportunity to explore additional possibilities and promises, perhaps some that you didn't even address in the first or second or third novel. Now, tonight I mentioned my most recent novel, a little plug here if I can hold it up. It's called A Breath of Fresh Air. And my current novel before that, which I just have been working on, finished the third novel in the series, the Dream Fair series. And I won't tell you how it ended. I just turned it into the publisher yesterday. But I may have created a very difficult situation for myself. And the question is, Joe, do I go on to book 4, which I feel I'm not really qualified fully to write, or can I rest in my laurels in book 3? Because my wife is telling me, you did it just right. Maybe you shouldn't do book 4. And book 3 seems to reach a nice conclusion, and yet it goes on. It goes on. So I feel very, very good about that. So I guess my answer would be 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Since I have started to write series later on in my career, right now I'm leaning more towards series because it gives you a chance to build upon what you've created before and explore aspects you didn't address previously. So it's a complex answer and a complex question. A good one, too.
What does writing short stories do for you, craft-wise?
What does writing short stories do for you, craft-wise? Does a great deal. There are big advantages to writing short stories as opposed to novels or series. For one thing, it's not quite like a marriage. It's you don't promise to love, honor, and obey to death do you, whatever. And you can sometimes in a few days you can write a story and then revise it. And if it doesn't work, if you're disappointed, no great loss. You can put it aside. You only lost a few days or a week and move on. One advantage is that you can market more stuff. Do you know, Joe, I have been paid more for some of my short fiction than for my novels. You know that? My best paying story, I received nearly $1,000 for. Got a check. $888. And not only do you get paid that money, you can resubmit it to other markets later on, possibility. You can put in your curriculum vitae. Short story writing allows you to try so many different things, to hone your craft, to try short stories, drabbles, flash fiction, short stories, long short stories, novelettes. It offers you the opportunity to try many different types of short fiction and longer fiction. And with a novel, you can spend weeks or heck years on it, and it can collapse in your hands and be a failure. On the other hand, writing short fiction, I think prepares you better to write the longer stuff, the novels. And there are authors who spend careers just writing short fiction. I think it's important to try to do both. All right, let's try to do the dreaded questionnaire.
So we're going to do
what rapid. I will intro. So give me a minute, okay?
We're going to do the questionnaire that's by the great but not people, and then perfected by the awesome James Lipton for Inside the Actor Studio, and here for me to torture my guests, John. Do you see what I'm seeing, John? All right.
I am seeing the statement. I am putting them on the screen. Do you see it? That's as far as I've gotten so far.
All right. Here, we'll do this. Favorite word to write. Ken.
Favorite word to write. But, there are a lot of nice words, daffodils and scintillating and starshore. My favorite word, if I had to pick one, I think it would be transcendent. And when I was a kid, what my favorite word was? It was beyond. You notice any similarity or connection between those two words? And that goes along, I think, with the fact that I taught transcendentalism in graduate school, and my interest in transcendent modes of experience, I guess you could say. Visions that are beyond this particular landlocked realm. Okay, what's the least favorite word to write? Well, in life, my least favorite word, I guess, would be damnation, because it kind of cuts off all possibilities, doesn't it? That's it. But least favorite word to write is different than least favorite word. Because since I wrote horror, a lot of horror, at one time, incidentally, I was chairman of the board of the Horror Writers Association. And I'm not particularly in favor of certain, the word fart I'm not too enamored with that one. I try to stay away from words that you simply don't need, like very. You don't need very usually. But those are two of the ones I would, that I'm not too crazy about writing. What turns you on? No, what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally? Well, I'm a pantser. We know what that is, right? As opposed to a plotter. So, a tantalizing idea or suggestion to get me started, something that lights the match. I just love that, because I like to see where it's going to. Joe, and all you listening out there and watching, now I've kind of lost my. Yeah. One day, decades ago, a word popped into my mind, a made-up word, dreamfarer, DREAMFARER. You have a seafarer, you have a wayfarer. Why not a dreamfarer? So eventually, I wrote a novel, and then I wrote a sequel, and I've just finished a sequel to that. So that is a tantalizing idea or suggestion, or in this case, a word I made up myself. That got me started. That got me excited creatively. Or a few days ago, my wife helped me on a rewrite of a novel I just turned in to Crossroad Press, Dream Chaser, and I had a great deal of fun working with her. She really helped me a great deal. As for spiritually, I'm Jewish. I'm not sure if I'm a believer or not, but I love religious music and hymns. My favorite being perhaps Dear my God to thee. I think it's exquisite, beautiful, uplifting. I love movies like Jesus Christ Superstar. I love the music in it. I love the movie Risen. These turn me on spiritually and get me excited. Emotionally, many things get me float my boat, get me to climb into the sky. And one of them is a good time with my family. One where we have give and take, where we exchange ideas and banter. We do this every Sunday, often watching football.
What turns you off?
Okay, let's see. What sound favorite? Okay, let's see. What turns you on? Turns you on. Favorite curse word? Oh, I didn't know this was one of them. I know one that I don't like to use, the GD word. Um, I guess damn I like. I like the F word that rhymes with luck. I'm sure that's a curse word, but just damn. Um, the GD word I occasionally use. They are high on my list. Um, I know there's some creative ones, but I don't usually use them. What sound or noise do you love? Okay. I love the sound of a bat hitting a ball. I love the sound of a bubbling brook. The sound of a brook makes, a stream makes as it moves down the channel. Um, I love a baby's cry. I love the sound of laughter. Um, I love the sound of applause. And I love a good song or symphony. At one time, early on, very early on, I had the notion that I could be I wanted to grow up and be an opera star. But I had no talent whatsoever, no voice for it. So I love good singers, male and female. If heaven exists or something beyond, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive? That's easy. I would like God to say, what took you so long? I would not want him or her to say, what are you doing here? No, I would like him to say, or I'm glad to see you, or what took you so long? But since he would be God and omnipotent with all knowledge, he probably wouldn't say that. Glad to see you would be also appreciated.
When you
Uh, what turns you off? Favorite cut? What sound or no? What sound? One question that was asked that I skipped over. What sound or noise do you dislike? I hate grating sounds. For example, nails on a blackboard or the sound of a shovel on being pulled across concrete. I'm not very crazy about those. Um, I would like to try this again in the future when we can get some of the kinks out. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
awesome.
At least
Thank
when
you,
we could
John.
hear and talk with each other.
Yes. Thank you, John. Remember, it's always time to go in now. Bye, everybody.